Well, hello and welcome to Thinking Through Everyday Life. We thank you for attending this presentation. And we have Mark A. Cornelius, author, podcast speaker, and seeker, who now joins us on a critical thinking journey to pursue not what we think, but how we think. Now, we have some ground to cover today. So here's Mark. Mark, hello.
Hi, Paul, and thanks. Thank you also, thinkers who are out there listening to this presentation. We appreciate that participation, and we're going to help empower and encourage you to pursue a truth journey, which begins with one powerful question. We'll dive into some insightful techniques toward resolution of that question, leading to truth with a capital T. And that question is, what if? How we critically think through everyday life. I'm going to start the presentation with a quote from George Lowenstein, who said, "When we encounter phenomenon that appears to be incompatible with our previous knowledge, or when we feel that there is a gap created by uncertainty, we are driven to seek new insights that will reduce the unpleasant sensation." Great words, George. However, I feel compelled to translate that saying and go into my favorite Southern vernacular. So here's how it would sound from my point of view. When you're up to your ass in alligators, it's hard to remember that your original objective was to drain the swamp. Now, there are some of you out there who have unknowingly proved a subtle point I just made before I even revealed the point. The word swamp in today's political climate may have triggered a visceral response in the minds of some of you. Please, please don't overthink the adage. It's in no way meant to disparage any bureaucratic or social group. As a matter of fact, in a few moments, we'll explore the importance of our perceptions throughout our thinking process, including triggers like the one I just touched on. I'm going to pose 3 critically thought out questions designed to help navigate through the swamp, that being my everyday cognitive conflicts that I encounter in my relationship to the world around me. But first, I'm actually going to jump right into the swamp using a critical thinking technique to share with you my origins, my journey, and my perceived destination. To share this adventure, you should know that I believe I'm in a rut, a repetitive, unchanging trajectory. And that's a good thing, contrary to popular belief. How did I get where I am in my rut? Where do I want to be? Am I on the correct path that's gonna get me there? Thinkers, have you noticed how many questions I've asked in a very short time? And we all do this. By the way, I think I just asked another question out there. Please bear with me. We'll arrive at some critical answers soon enough. For now, the important concept is to think that your critically thought out life journey involves a map that you follow toward a desired or an undesired destination. In today's postmodern environment, opinions fly, conventional wisdom rules, meanings of words like tolerance, justice, and order are being redefined. Questioning is being encouraged of everything, every foundation, and every truth. But the instant gratification of social media and the internet is replacing my need to answer questions at all. Ironically, in a world that proposes unlimited answers, humanity has discovered the ability to replace scrutiny bypassing the cognitive process of curiosity, instead choosing any or no answers to justify my selfish needs and wants. And by unthinkingly following a rut map that serves only the purposes of another person or group without testing out my own true ideals and aspirations, I become a traveler on a path that most likely will never take me toward the destination to which I want to arrive. So, am I thinking, questioning through issues to their ultimate conclusion? And as important, am I seeking, and is there anyone else encouraging solid answers to my questions? The following questioning exercises are meant to challenge popular and conventional wisdom through the balancing of deductive and inductive reasoning. Let's examine critical thinking in a way that will invite an entertaining and friction-filled discourse toward that ultimate, if most elusive destination of all. That being agreement. And speaking of agreement, can we come to one right now on whose reality is it anyway? And who owns the process of critical thinking? Remember the three critical questions I alluded to? Well, here's the first one. What if I'm wrong? Let's say I'm progressing along on my rut thinking path and discover that I'm headed the wrong direction. In other words, my thoughts, my opinions, and beliefs are contradictory to those of the travelers I wish to journey with. I want to be right, and I want to be accepted. How do I adjust? Or do I? To correctly answer this requires me to first admit a personal trait. It's best described by a fellow armchair philosopher and dear friend, Leo Griego, who said, I am needy. Excuse me, he didn't say that at all. He said, I am not needy, I am wanty. Let's be honest. No matter how closely tied I am in with my relationships to other human beings, my reality rules. It's a challenge for me to work past my opinions and in my experiences to consider the thoughts and ideology of another person, or for that matter, all other people. And that sets up a critical conflict to be explored. Who is right and who is wrong? How do I measure my opinions and beliefs to those of others? I know that I'm different from others, just as we are all different from one another. But for me, it has become more important to explore not what others think, but how we think alike. Only in that exploration can true dialogue toward agreement begin. So we're going to go through an exercise, and I'm going to start defining a few things. First of all, the balance of deductive and inductive reasoning is critical to my critically thought out reality. That is how I juggle my desire to be right with what is right. Let's define these two because I think it's important we all understand the approaches. Deductive reasoning first. I'm in my office after traveling 45 minutes. By the way, you like my picture window? That's what I see in my office. And having started my travels from my home, I have had to use some sort of transportation to make the journey. Maybe I flew here, or maybe I drove on a freeway from one point in town to another point in town. I may have even walked to work. To do that, though, I would have had to have used some sort of transportation. And deductive reasoning says that I have to figure out how that transportation got me here. So I am reverse engineering the fact that I am here and somehow I got here. That's deductive reasoning. Inductive reasoning is different. I want to get to this destination, but I haven't arrived yet. I don't even know what the destination looks like, so I have to create in my mind a way to get to a point that I think I want to be at. So I must design transportation to get me to a place that I've never seen. That is inductive reasoning. And as I think through these reasoning methods, I also have to keep in mind that other people that I want to relate with may or may not be reasoning as I do. What if I'm reasoning within my office perch from a deductive point of view, having already arrived, and every one of you listening in this presentation are working through these ideas inductively, having never been to my office? I know, it's a hypothetical reach, but the point is that before trying to cultivate a critical thinking relationship with others, I should recognize that interactions and discourse with those people will certainly impact our individual and group thinking, constantly challenging our personal and social mindsets. It's important when we critically think through that we know the mindset that I and those with whom I interact begin with in our individual reasoning, what that mindset is. Here are two mindsets that most of us start from in any given thinking exercise or discussion. Mindset number one: I have a purpose, and I want to justify my actions toward accomplishing that purpose. That's different from mindset number two: I have no purpose at all, and I want an excuse to justify my inaction. How do such mindsets affect my relationship with other people who may also be critically or not critically thinking their rut journey through to its desired destination? What happens when my preconceived agendas obstruct my critical thinking efforts, impeding my critically thought out agreements and relationships with others? Wait, did I just correlate the word agreement with relationship? Was that an inductive or a deductive reasoning exercise? Ponder that one, thinkers, as we explore what if question number 2. What if you're wrong? What happens when two or more people disagree? Remember, I want to be right. I strive to get my way. To get my way, I marginalize my adversaries, those with opinions and lifestyles and beliefs different from my own. In doing so, I try to negate the esteem and the value of their position, thus elevating my own position and my own value. And that, thinkers, is how I fix those who don't agree with my thinking. Marginalizing others is a powerful example of where perception is not always matched up to reality. So, what if, at least temporarily, I was to abandon my desired objective and instead seek an alternative way of critically thinking through the answering of my questions toward the completion of my rut journey? Toward that end, is there another consideration I might be missing? What if we're all wrong? imposing my opinions and beliefs on others, or before they attempt to do the same, we might explore a fresh approach. Let's invent a revolutionary name for the approach encompassing all that we have critically thought out so far. Let's call it listening. Now, listening is a craft and a practice that I have to work through. It is not something I accomplish in one fell swoop. I have to go through a listening exercise every time I encounter another person. For example, in conversation, have you ever heard someone detailing a sumptuous meal that they've experienced? While hearing them out, I busy myself concocting a story of my own dining experience to share back. Why do I do that? Did I actually digest how the other person's meal affected them? Or did it just inspire me to enter into a culinary competition? What can I do to alter this tendency of mine of competitively measuring so that I can instead honor exclusively the experience of the other person and possibly gain new insight through their telling? Instead of approaching a subject with a preset opinion or mindset, I'm learning, again, still learning. Remember, this is a craft to be practiced toward perfection. That listening requires a complete paradigm shift of a very well-entrenched social contract. It involves contract versus covenant thinking. So with contract thinking, by the way, that's something for something. I want you to imagine that you wake up every day in a contract world. Everything you do requires you to get your way versus someone else's way. But maybe there's a way that you can both get what you want together. That's called a contract. Remember my office. I'm driving to my office in my car. You're driving in the next lane to me. We want to make sure we're staying in the same lane so we can both get to our destination on the same road. Now, let's say, just as another hypothetical, you sold me the car I'm in. That was another contract. I bought the car thinking it would be the best possible transportation to get me where I want to go, and it has just exactly everything I want in it. It's reliable, and I got it for an affordable price. You, on the other hand, sold me that car wanting to get the best price you could get for it and for the least amount of inconvenience. Let's say along the way, my car breaks down. Now, suddenly I'm not thinking my contract with you was very fair. Did I spend too much money? Was it as reliable as you said it was? Well, that's my side of the contract. What happens if I stop paying you for that car? Suddenly you're thinking, well, what happened? That's not fair. And that is an example of a contract gone bad. While many of us think that a contractual navigation through life is the only way to go, there's actually another course to consider, which is the pursuit of covenant thinking, which is a true agreement. As opposed to a contract, something for something, covenant thinking starts with an objective of all for one thing, a greater good, which requires reasoning and action focused on a higher shared purpose of everyday, critically thought out relationships. Oh, wait a minute. Am I proposing a socialistic, or dare I say, communistic approach to critical thought, ideology, and action? Not at all. Remember the visceral reaction some of you may have experienced as at the mention of the swamp? The same caution applies here. This is not an attempt to encourage group thinking or to cultivate conventional wisdom. Quite the opposite. Excuse me, I want to get peaceful here. If we are all wrong, becoming all right will require a reasonable comparison, not a marginalized measuring of our views. Only then can we critically think through and come to agreement and acceptance of a greater truth distinct from the experiences of any one individual. If each of us is all wrong, that means all of us will be required to first deeply and patiently listen. Listen to others, being ready to resonate with the tuning fork of the elusive but not unobtainable higher purpose. In this way, we're not to marginalize or measure others, but we want to continue together in an inductive and deductive discovery into how, not what, each of us, all of us, think. With that, I'm going to share the words of one more great thinker, Epictetus, who said, "As you think, so you become." Our busy minds are forever jumping to conclusions, manufacturing and interpreting signs that aren't there. So thinkers think, but in that critical process, be patient, first listening to take in and compare the mindsets of all involved in the conversation. That includes your own mindset. Make sure you are pursuing, through the balancing of deductive and inductive reasoning, a covenantal approach, comparatively seeking the greater good and the higher purpose that exists to benefit us all. And with that, thinkers, I want to thank you for joining in on this presentation. I'd like to invite you also to join in the actual discussion by participating in the Thinking Through Everyday Life question and answer session, which will be held Tuesday, August 3rd at 8 p.m. Central Time. The link for that session should be in your conference information. We want that discussion to be critical to your thinking, and that requires all y'all, that's plural for y'all in my favorite Southern vernacular, to contribute. Paul, take it away.
Well, thank you, Mark. I really appreciate your insight. And once again, we'd love to invite you folks to the question and answer session to be held Tuesday, August the 3rd at 8 p.m. Central. There are also other ways to continue this conversation with Mark. And as you can see here on the screen now, Mark My Words, which is a podcast for critical thinkers that asks, what if? You can contact Mark through email, markcwrights@gmail.com. We have a Facebook site you can follow. Also, the website is rutmanagement.com. And our podcasts are located at that link on YouTube. We invite you to visit all of them and tell us what you think. In the meantime, thanks once again, Mark. Really appreciate it. And everyone else, enjoy your day. Take care. We'll see you soon.